Kelly or volcano kettles are an incredibly useful piece of equipment and a way of boiling water, lots of water, very quickly. So they're very handy to have around, but they can be a little bit temperamental to light and even trickier than your standard campfire. Reason being, these base plates are small and rather tricky to work in. You need to have all of your tinder and kindling all sorted in a pile properly in this vessel to have a chance of lighting the kettle effectively. But if, like me, you've spent a whole lot of time staring down the middle of the chimney wondering why on earth the kindling isn't lighting, then this is the video for you. So if you're interested in finding out about my top 2 ways to light a Kelly kettle effectively, stay watching. I'm Bracken of BrackenOutdoors.com, and welcome to another video. Before we light the kettle, we're going to need to do some preparation. As with any sort of fire lighting, preparation is the key to success. So the first thing we're going to need is some kindling and fuel. So we want a good variety of dead wood and twigs, ranging in thickness from smaller than a matchstick all the way up to, I'd say, no more than thumb thickness. The beauty of the Kelly kettle is it will work very efficiently with very small twigs. You don't have to go and work too hard to gather firewood, but you really will need the finer twigs, as when we start that flame going with our tinder, we want something of appropriate thickness to catch from that. Anything too big and we're not going to get anywhere with lighting this kettle. Second thing we're going to need is a tinder of some sort. You can use cotton wool, birch bark, fat wood, basically anything that you would normally use for fire lighting. So I've got a mixture of birch bark and fat wood in here, which I'll be using. Then it's helpful to remember to put some water into the kettle first, otherwise you will struggle to add water once the fire is already going, and you may well put out your fire before it's even got going. So make sure there's water in your kettle, and make sure you remove the stopper or bung. It is helpful. Then, final thing, we need a clear space, clear piece of ground for the kettle to rest on. Now this is a contained fire, but the base will get very hot. So make sure it's not sitting on anything that's flammable or that you don't want to leave scorch marks on. Then once we've got all that ready, we can start prepping the kettle. Now the key to lighting a Kelly kettle is to make sure that there's the right size and amount of fuel for the flame in the right positions to be lit by the initial flame. So for the first technique, what we're going to do is we're going to take our kettle portion and we're just going to stuff the inside with bundles of our thinner twigs. So birch twigs are particularly good for this. We're just going to cover it in. We're just going to pack the inside with lots of our thinner twigs, the denser we pack it, the more likely it's going to catch, and the thinner we have our fuel wood in here, the better. We can then feed in a lot of the thicker pieces once it's all lit. So you want lots of thin stuff right in the middle so it will catch from our initial flame. There we go. That's all ready to go. Now that we've got our kettle stuffed, we can then take our tinder and add it to the bottom of our Kelly Kettle stand. Just go rough up the fibers. This is Himalayan birch bark. It's very easy to light, thin and papery, but I hope it'll be very easy, otherwise this won't be a very short demonstration. Okay, and I'm also going to have a look, see which way the wind's blowing. I'm just going to turn the base so that the intake is facing the direction of the wind. If the wind's blowing too strongly, you might want to turn it, but I find to get a nice bit of airflow, you want the base hole in the direction of the wind. So everything's going to happen rather rapidly once this fire gets going. There we go. Birch bark. I'm going to hold 90 degrees. And there we go. Might need to give it a bit of a push to seat it. But there we go. So we're going to wait for it to establish a bit, and while we're doing that we can start preparing our next layer to add in. And you can start gently pushing down. Now it's safe at the moment for me to add fuel like this because we haven't got too hot a flame coming out of the top, so I can just keep prodding it in. There we go. At that point we just need to keep feeding as this starts to drop down. Get a little bit of a push, but this kettle's well on its way to boiling. So the main disadvantage to the stuff method is the air gap in between the bottom of the twigs in the kettle and the flame in the base. And if the flame's not hot enough or large enough, or the wood's not dry enough to catch easily, then you can end up having problems. So this next method, which is the log cabin method, is designed to do away with that air gap. So what you're going to do is you're going to get some slightly thicker pieces of wood, and you're just going to start to stack them in to create a platform that we can then rest the kindling on. Because if we drop the kindling directly on the flame, directly onto the tinder, then chances are it will suffocate it. So we want to have a little bit of air gap, and this provides structure right at the start of the fire, so that we can start our fire there and then add kindling. So once we've got our frame in place, we want to gather a bundle of really fine twigs. Again, birch bark, fine beech twigs, pine twigs, anything that's really thin, matchstick and smaller is ideal. And then you want to snap them so that they're short enough to fit inside the base of the kettle. So we don't want any sticking out around the edge, because that will affect the seal of the kettle to the base, and then we won't get the draw that we want to keep the flame going. So I'm going to gather some more of my birch bark, pop it in the center there, find my fire steel, then there we go. Just going to take, nearly tuck in the edges. Okay, and then we can take our kettle, holding it at 90 degrees, handle at 90 degrees to the kettle, and we can just gently drop into the base, give a firm push, and that should now be going. Once we hear a bit of flame, there we can start dropping some larger bits in, carefully trying not to suffocate it. The other advantage of this method is you don't usually get the massive suffocating smoke of the stuff method. There we go, and that should be on its way to becoming a cup of tea. There you have it. That's 2 different ways to light a Kelly Kettle. I hope you found it helpful, and I wish you all the best with your future Kelly Kettle lighting endeavors. And if you'd like to see more on the topic of fire lighting, I've got some videos on my channel, so recommend checking those out. And if there's anything that you're struggling with at the moment that you'd like a bit of help, let me know, and it may be a video in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.